with it all is, and this comes down to parenting as well. Like I never understood, you know, I've noticed now in the modern way to parent is that people stress that everything is either right or wrong.
Exactly.
And when I parented, I always taught my kids always entertain the possibility that you may be wrong.
Yeah.
Number one, and that right and wrong can sometimes be a moving target.
Yeah.
Uh, and nothing in life. I mean, nothing in life is black and white.
No.
Nothing. There isn't anything I know of that's black and white, and yet we all act as if everything is black and white. You know,
Well,
even in sports, like
Yeah.
you have an opinion and people think you're right. Like whenever I write something, I always entertain the possibility that I may be wrong. I mean, I have my convictions, but
Yeah. Oh
if you
yeah. There's
have a good argument, I say, well, that makes a lot of sense.
the thing is
well,
people are based on logic, and people make their arguments in logic, and logic only works if you have every aspect of it. If you're missing any part of it, logic goes out the window. So if you don't and that's what I always say about hockey. Even the hockey trades, some hockey trades that happen aren't logical. But then you don't know. Maybe that guy was like a born again Christian who was just making everybody crazy in the locker room. That happens. It honestly does. And it's like but if you don't have that piece of logic, you can't analyze that entire trade. So you can't. When you're looking at a situation, any situation like parenting or anything like that, if you don't have every aspect, which you never have every aspect, so there's no way it can be black and white.
what disturbs me is the politicization of everything. I mean, you expect it when anything like this comes out. You got, Fox News on one side and MSNBC on the other side. One is pro Michael Brown, the other one is pro the
Yeah.
Law and Order. I mean, that's to be expected.
Right.
But when an established media source, the gray lady like the New York Times, posts the street address and city of the cop who was just not indicted and saying it's half an hour outside of Ferguson, they're inviting a group of people to go over to this guy and try to kill him. I mean, is there any
Yeah, I agree with you. It's absolutely absurd.
responsibility in the press any longer?
Not much. No, definitely that I've seen. I've watched it slowly deteriorate. It is.
Yeah, I'm not sure I do agree with that. I mean,
Okay.
I've been part of too many
Yeah.
discussions
Yeah.
that go on before all that. So there's still a great debate. Now, I'm not
Yeah.
defending the New York Times on that. I don't know what went into that, but
Yeah.
you know that at USA Today, we have considerable debate before we do anything about whether we're doing the right thing, and that's really all you can ask for. Is that, you try your best to do the right thing, and what happened in Ferguson is just a tragedy all the way around, and now
Yeah.
you try to sort through it all, and it's not an easy
Well,
task.
no, and there is, I think papers like the USA Today, the New York Times, there are good papers out there still, and there are good news organizations out there, but the television news has definitely become it's become sports. It's a sports team. It's you're rooting for this team and you're rooting for that team. Like that, and you're watching the team you're watching the people you want to cover your sport when you watch Fox or when you watch MSNBC or whatever you're watching the people you want to cover it. And it makes people angry at each other. It builds it up, and the 24-hour news cycle doesn't help this kind of situation. My wife was in LA during the riots way back when, and she talks about that often, and it's just, even back then, it wasn't this crazy.
The other problem with television news is it's like we have a drive-through, drive-in mentality
Yeah,
where you
exactly.
got to microwave everything, and you've got to get it out quick, which leads to speculation, which leads
Right.
to incorrect speculation, and particularly in these events where there's shootings and I mean we've all seen the television news and just gritted our teeth as we watch these people try to sort through what's happened. And it used to be acceptable to say, we don't know anything yet.
Yeah, right,
You
right.
know, we're waiting, we're trying to figure out what's going on, but you can't do that now in television news. You're
Yeah.
required to speculate. What we're hearing, what we're sensing. So it's all completely different, and it's just the modern world. And
Yeah.
All the networks, Kevin, all the networks had legal teams and analyzing the release of the documents an hour after they're released. I mean, and then the following day, you know, a couple lawyers, a judge, a civil rights attorney, a former ACL. I mean, all this on, you know, analysis and paralysis by analysis. But the thing is, it's like there's no possible way that they could review all the documentation that the grand jury had reviewed over months and months. So it's just speculation. It's just I don't know.
No, it isn't. And every place has Twitter now too. Everybody has a Twitter guy, you know, who's covering the Twitter. This is what the Twitter people are saying, you know.
Right.
And that's just like, that's absurd. I mean, we all know, we follow Twitter enough to know that you should not be following that.
Yeah. Although saying all that, I mean, you and I both know that, you know, Twitter has been really beneficial for the reporting of news in, particularly in foreign countries where.
No, there's no question where the news press is being monitored by the government and all that, and even here. But it's the fact that, is, like you said, they feel the need to report on Twitter that someone said this on Twitter, and it's a really short leap between that, and that shows up on the bottom of the scroll, the tweet, you know, that goes on there, and then no one's checked into it, you know, that's not being, it's just someone says that, and that to me is.
Yeah. Well, one of the issues I have, there's two things. When someone tweets something and then comes back and said, well, I didn't really mean it, you know, I don't know.
Right.
Like, that excuses it. It's just the my bad.
Right.
And there's no consequences. As long as you didn't mean it, and, you know, there's no consequences. And the second thing, the reporting of tweets, and then the excusing yourself for doing it. Now, you know, they come on and they say, you know, this is just a tweet. We haven't been able to verify it, but we're going to tell you anyway. Well, then don't tell us. You know,
yeah, right.
You can't verify it. You know,
right.
Don't throw it out there because you've given credibility to it.
And,
you know,
and the apology is never for the comment. It's for being caught making the comment. It's like, I'm sorry I said that. No, it doesn't mean that I don't mean it. I'm just sorry that I said that it offended anybody. No, you believe what you just said, so why are you sorry? Stick to your guns.
Exactly. It's like the Tom Sestito tweet about Ferguson that he deleted, and people, you can't delete something because someone will always screen grab it, someone will always capture it, and if that is your opinion, stand by your opinion, even if it's unpopular, even if it makes people upset, even if people will disagree. People will disagree with every opinion, trust me.
Right.
No. But, you know, at least stand up for it and say, that's what I believe. If you're offended, be offended. Like, it's not the end of the world to offend people.
Right. That's exactly it, and that's what people are missing, and it's
Well, there's also a celebration of, you know, having something happen to you that you can report on Facebook or Twitter.
Right.
I think people almost revel in having a poor experience somewhere, so they can get on and Facebook and tell us, you know, that, you know, they dealt with a moron today.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, you know, if I have run into someone who's having a bad day at the supermarket and doesn't treat me well, I don't run to Facebook and write it up. But it seems like that's what most people are doing.
It's so funny you say that. It's so true. And I mean, I brought this up on the Cranky Writer Show. We'll start hockey after this, but this is a funny way to lay this. But it was about a month ago, and I was watching I was just walking through my neighborhood, and there was a duck walking along carrying a bra in its mouth. It had just picked up from somewhere, and it was just walked past me on the street, like a duck carrying a bra. I reach in for my phone, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I gotta tweet, I gotta take a picture of this, and I'm going to my phone, and I can't, and I don't have enough space on my phone, and I'm freaking out, like, oh man, I don't have enough space to take this picture, and I'm just thinking, and I got mad at myself, and I'm like, wait a second, it's like, if this happened when a couple years ago, I would have just told my friends about it. It would have been a fun, silly story. But now I've totally missed the entire moment of this duck walking past because I had to send it out to everybody I knew and people I don't know on Twitter. And it's just like, that was absurd to me. And it just kind of hit me like, wait, you know, what are we doing here? That really bothered me. Anyway.
Well, let's do hockey, and you know, because this is, you know, as I brought up the other day, this is the best job I ever had. So let's do.
I agree with you. I'm with you 100%. And I apologize for my clothing today, but my wife made me wear this. She's like, you got to wear that on the podcast.
I love that.
All right. Thank you very much. So anyway, okay, here we go. So it's the 26th of November.
Try to get within 3 years on the date, okay?
All right, 2015.
Yeah, there you
The
go.
problem is, wait till it changes to 2015. I'll be totally screwed. 2014, it's Wednesday. Okay, got it. I think we're good. Smiles, everyone. Hey, Hockey World, how you doing? It's Wednesday, November 26th, 2014.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Ryan Garner.
I'm Kevin Allen, USA Today Sports.
I'm Mike Lynn from HockeyBuzz.com, and you're watching the HockeyBuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com and all around the internet, wherever you choose to watch your podcasts. This is the show where we come to you once a week, or I mean once a day, Monday through Friday, to give you the news and kind of keep you up to date on what's happening in the hockey world. And today, since this is the last show of the week, since it's going to be a short week for us because of Thanksgiving and down here in the States, we're just catching up to you guys in Canada. We felt guilty for the last month and a half not thanking you back, so we're going to start thanking people tomorrow. We're going to do a little bit of turkeys and blessings today, along with discussing some of the teams that may indeed still make the playoffs, even though they're not in the playoffs as of American Thanksgiving. I feel like it feels like the wall of gloom is approaching us more than ever before. This year I've heard more than ever this mentioned about, if you're not in by Thanksgiving in America, you're done. So we're going to see what happens with that wall approaching. And also a little bit about Marty St. Louis, who's playing down here in Tampa. I'm just south of Tampa, so actually ran into some hockey talk today in the Publix market right across the street. So we'll talk about that too. So let's start with turkeys and Kevin, because that's more fun to start with than things players we should be thankful for. Who do you got for us today?
Well, I mean, I think I've got start us out with 3 turkeys.
Right,
I'm going to go with Alex Hemsky. I mean, this is the guy that I think we all thought was going to be really helpful to the Dallas Stars. They were renovating their top 2 forward lines. They were bringing in Jason Spezza, who's been exactly what they expected him to be. But Hemsky, it was the perfect signing because he was either going to be able to play with Sagan and Ben. They just felt he would be a perfect complementary player for those two. Or, he had good chemistry with Spezza. But, he has no goals, and he really has not been a player. And this was a missed opportunity, in my opinion, for Hemsky because he had been in Edmonton, and there was always, speculation or, I think if you're a Hemsky fan, the hope that if he could get out of Edmonton and get with a really good team that we would really, I mean, he's a highly skilled player, as we all know. He's very skillful. And when they thought if he got out of there, he could really blossom even beyond what he has shown in Edmonton. But that's certainly not been the case. And number 2 of my...
I want to discuss that one for a second because I want to go to Ryan on this one, obviously, because Ryan has spent his life studying the works of Alex Hemsky.
He's a Hemskyologist?
Yes, he's a Hemskyologist. And I've always looked at Alex Hemsky like Alexei Kovalev without the upside. So what are your thoughts on Hemsky?
Well, he's an incredibly skilled player, one of the best stick handlers in the game, great passer, and it's like he just, even the last few years in Edmonton, he's just been running on fumes. His ice time decreased. He's found himself on the third line in a role that he wasn't comfortable with, that he wasn't able to have any success in. And people said, well, it's odd because this guy is amazing in practice. He reminds me of Marcel Gottsch when I was covering the Sharks, because they would say, Marcel Gottsch, if you just watch the practices, he was the best. Hands down. Better than Marlowe, better than Thornton, better than anyone. And then he couldn't translate it into the games. And I think that's the problem with Hemsky. He's a tough guy. He doesn't get hurt. He's able to weather the punishment, but he just doesn't get dirty. He doesn't get gritty. Can't get into the scoring areas. And I think we've seen that with Dallas, where he's lost. He just doesn't know where to be, doesn't know how to get into those areas you have to get to be a productive player.
What is it? Why? I mean, we've seen certain players. It reminds me a little bit of Olli Jokinen in Phoenix. Like when he went to Phoenix after, Olli Jokinen was really a pretty good player in Florida, and then he showed up in Phoenix and was just horrible for a while. It just and not scoring any goals. I mean, Danny Briere scored his 4th goal last night. He's been scratched half the games. It's hard to not score any goals this year. I mean, on a team like Dallas with all that offensive talent. What are your thoughts, Mike?
Well, I mean, it's always a tricky thing when a player goes to a new scenario. I mean, I know that, like somebody like Jason Spezza has played pretty well in Dallas, getting moved from Ottawa, and he has grown into that position to the point that the Dallas Stars signed him to a 4-year contract extension. Hemsky just really hasn't followed through. I mean, he played better in Ottawa last year after the trade from Edmonton, and that's what Dallas expected from him, being moved down to Dallas and being reunited with Spezza, and it just hasn't worked. And I think that's one of the key contributing factors to Dallas not doing as well as they were expected to do this season.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny when you actually, like, I was reading an article yesterday, I think it was 2 days ago, by Mike Heika, who's actually trying to write something positive about Helsinki, and he writes in 2 days, and he says basically, well, last year Sagan was terrible until he went and played in Boston, and then he was good. So they're thinking, okay, so Hemsky's going to go and play in Buffalo, even though that's really not, really a homecoming for him anymore. It's more think of like terms. He gives this whole thing of like, oh, and eventually he'll come, with Lindy Ruff's return. He was doing this whole thing about, possibly getting, and yeah, it's reaching. You can't make this happen.
It's really been difficult too for Dallas because they had Nikushkin in the injury,
yeah,
and then they've had Hemsky not be the player, and I think that almost, forced is too strong, but that's why they've had to play, Spezza. Have loaded up that one line at times because they just don't have the options that they thought they would have. I mean, at the start of the year, boy, this really looked like it was going to be a really strong two-line team, and that hasn't been the case. And Hemsky's has played a role in that for sure.
Yeah, I agree. So what's your next turkey, Kevin?
Well, I went with an entire team, an entire organization, and we all know where we're going, Ryan, don't we?
So predictable, Kevin.
Yeah, I know. I had to go there. I mean, at the start of the year, we thought, well, they're going to be better. They signed a couple of defensemen, and they weren't superstars. Fane and I'm drawing a blank. Nick Eaton, right? And but they were going to be better. These young forwards were going to be older, and they picked up some role players, Purcell, and who's been a scorer in Tampa Bay, and Puyo, who's big and strong. It was going to be different, and there was hope for the goaltending. And here we are again, and now it just seems the mess is even bigger. We're already 20 games into the season, and now you're almost out of options. It's almost a lost season again, another lost season. And I said the other day, I mean, your options are either you blow it up again, and you bring in, you've got options for GM. There are some experienced guys out there, Ray Shiro, McPhee. There are other guys as well. You got a coach sitting out there. But if you do that, then you're limiting your search if you wait till the off season. So, there's like not even good options for blowing it up right now. In terms of, is it better to wait till the summer? So I think they got to be a turkey because we just don't have any idea. There's no timetable, again, for how soon we can turn this franchise around.
Ryan?
Kevin nailed it. That's exactly right. And they've lost 7 straight.
Yeah.
They're not scoring. Their goaltending is the worst in the league. And they've got defensive breakdowns all over the place. Last night they give up 3 goals to Dallas. The first one you put on the goaltender on a shot from center ice that goes in, straight in. The second one, a horrible line change by Justin Schultz, springs Tyler Seguin for an easy goal, pretty much breakaway goal for him. And the third goal, your forwards don't come back to cover Seguin for a pass from behind the red line right out into the slot where he's wide open. So you put it on goaltending, defense, forwards right there, you see. And I mean, when you're getting 2 goals per game, you're not going to beat anyone when your goaltenders are giving up more than any other team in the league. So I don't know where you go from here. I think you go Connor McDavid from here. That's really the only option I see in Edmonton.
Well, can they fall that far? I mean, that's the question. I mean, that's.
They're already there. They're already the worst team in the league.
All right. Well, I guess I take that back. They can fall that far. Yes. So Connor McDavid. All right. So there we go. And then. I mean, at least they'll get a center.
Yeah. I mean, there's just nothing left to say about the Oilers. I mean. They've fallen that far. Like, there's nothing can be done. It's a lost season. You don't know how long it's going to take. We're right back where we were last season. Well, here we are. The only saving grace is, and we talked about this yesterday, this year winning the #1 draft pick has a much greater reward.
Well, I mean, I think there's going to be some reshuffling of the deck chairs on the Titanic here with, all this talk about them trading Perron. In the last 24 hours, all this Artem Anisimov Perron deal stuff. It basically is they're getting themselves an experienced guy who's probably better as a number 3 center than a number 2 center if this deal ends up happening. But I just think there's too much talent there for them to finish dead last this year, because in probably a month or maybe 6 weeks, the Sabres are probably going to divest themselves of Stafford and Stewart and maybe Tyler Myers, and if they do that, I can't see them winning many games.
Well, it's going to be a race to the bottom. And the Perron stuff is really disappointing for a lot of Oiler fans, too, because he came out last week after a 2-0 loss to the Devils, where everyone had been positive up to that point. Everyone had said the right thing, and, well, okay, we look better on paper, we feel better on the ice, the possession numbers are up, and Dallas Eakins didn't have anything bad to say about anyone. And David Perron came out and said, everyone says we're playing better, but the results aren't there. And if the results aren't there, nothing matters, right? We're still making the same defensive mistakes and breakdowns we were last year, and that's not changing, and I'm tired of it. And so the next day, Perron is on the trade block. Perron's being traded. And this is the Oilers' leading goal scorer last season, a guy who he's not a perfect player or anything, but he brings a consistent work ethic. He brings a physical edge, and he doesn't just settle for it. And if he's the guy to go, if he's the guy that gets shipped out, it sends another horrible message to the fan base.
I agree completely, Ryan. And I thought the same exact thing when I saw this, because this is somebody finally showing some leadership in this town. Finally someone stepping up and saying, okay, this is not right. We got to fix this. And yeah, and it just goes to hell in a handbasket. And now they're going to move him? What the hell? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. I agree with you completely.
Well, and the thing is, and Ryan, I'm sure you'll agree, the only way that there is change that is consequential with this team is if they move a Yakupov or an Eberle or somebody in that core group. And not to say give them away. I'm saying move them for players that will help them, that can be part of a new core group.
Well, now we're hearing Hall's name mentioned all of a sudden. Like the other day, some of the insiders are coming out and saying Hall is possible. I mean, that seems insane to me. I mean, there's like the other guy that, I mean, Perron I get because he's a winger, but Hall, you got to hold on to Hall.
Yeah, but the thing with Hall is that he's part of the problem. He's a great player. He's their most skilled player. There's an argument he should have been on the Canadian Olympic team last year. No one's questioning the talent, but he is one of the drivers in saying, I'm embarrassed, I'm sorry, I'm upset, this is frustrating. Well, if it's frustrating, do something about it, right? You have 1 point in your last 5 games. You're not doing anything. You're not being the leader, right? So you can complain about it. You can tell everyone how disappointed you are, but you are able to do something about it and drive it and make the guys around you better, rather than just feeding into this, oh, woe is us, woe is me, this is really disappointing. It's like Taylor Hall, you've got to grow up and at some point acknowledge that you are the most important player on the worst team in the league, and that accountability falls to you. And so no one wants to see Hall traded, but listen, it's just gets to be a frustrating thing where everyone says the biggest fear in Edmonton is, well, when does Taylor Hall get fed up and demand a trade? And that's the thing most people are scared of, and it's like Taylor Hall is not bigger than the Edmonton Oilers. No one is bigger than the franchise.
And he has a bit of Joffrey Lupul disease, if you ask me. I mean, he's been hurt how many times, Ryan? And it's always a different injury. It's not a chronic knee injury. It's not a shoulder. You can't hold
that against a guy.
No. I'm not. But I'm saying if Edmonton is looking to, and I'm just saying if Edmonton is looking to make a change and they are justifying trading a Taylor Hall, him being a little brittle, might be a contributing factor to it. Maybe I'm reading too much into it.
Well, one of my turkeys is Craig McTavish, so let's put this out there right now, and it ties into this. So, in terms of the fact that I just feel like this team had, and I'm going to call them on the carpet for Dallas Eakins first off, because as much as I don't want this team to change coaches again, but I think they have to. I don't think there's any question they have to. And yeah, you can sit there and say they've changed coaches many, many times, but it doesn't matter if you don't bring in the right coach. How many times you change coaches? You have to bring in. I mean, this is a situation where you look at the guy who goes up to Winnipeg. This is the kind of coach they need. They need a coach who's been around, who's been in the league for a while, and they need somebody who, like, if Ken Hitchcock was available, I would say Hitchcock is the guy. Somebody like that who's going to bring a totally, you can't go with a young, hip coaching staff with this kind of organization anymore. They've got to be, you got to go in with a, pile driving, hard, friggin' not player coach, to make this happen.
Yeah, let me circle back a little bit to Hall a little bit and sort of bring up. I mean, I understand Ryan's point, and I think it's a valid one. At some point, you look in the history of the NHL, young star players have risen up and picked the team up. Steve Yzerman is the best example of that, probably. Who was part of one of the worst franchises in NHL history. But it was a struggle for him to do that, and he often was blamed. And I did the book with Chris Chelios, and I remember that there was a particular chapter we were talking about his his reputation and his style of leadership, and he basically said that it came from the fact he grew up in the Montreal Canadiens organization with guys like Gainey and Larry Robinson. He grew up in a winning environment, and my point about Hall is he's grown up in a mess, a functional family, and he doesn't really know, how to dig himself out or to stand up and lead this team. And I think if Hall had been, first of all, I don't think they'll trade him, and they shouldn't trade him, in my opinion. I think he's part of the solution, not the problem. I think he's the foundation block. So I wouldn't be too angry at Hall for not being able to rise up and lead this team out of the doldrums. I think he just has never been shown how that's done. He has not been with an organization. They've been a miserable organization since he got there, and I think he needs guidance. He needs people, and even bringing in a veteran presence like that's not the same as being surrounded by Bob Gainey and Larry Robinson like Chris Chelios.
Yeah, that's the thing. So, you're absolutely right.
So, who knows?
Let me give you one of my turkeys. It's sort of a co-turkey. Brian McClellan, the Washington Capitals GM, and Matt Niskanen pairing together for possibly the worst contract so far in the free agent class. Niskanen was signed for 7 years, almost $6 million. He has 1 goal and 5 assists so far. Not even close to Carlson or Mike Green, who's a pending UFA in offensive statistics. And the additions of Niskanen really have not appreciably helped the Capitals keep the puck out of the net. They're still like a middle-of-the-road team. Now, maybe that's Holtby. Maybe I think that those additions have made a big difference. And, Niskanen right now, he's 27 years old, and maybe he can improve. But right now, it's not having the desired effect in Washington.
That's a great one, Mike. It's a great one. And I think, Kevin, you disagree?
Yeah, I do. I think we need time on that one. I think there are 29 other teams that would love to have Matt Niskanen. He goes to a team where Green is the #1 power play guy. The power play goes through him on the point. So I just think he needs time. Like I know what Mike's saying, and it's a valid point. I thought there was going to be an instant, change defensively. I thought Trotz was going to get around, and they haven't done that. But I just think it's a little bit early yet. I mean, maybe maybe Mike's right, but I think it's just early on that one.
It is. I mean, it is early, but at the same point, I'm gonna draw you into a bigger line. I think that the UFA defenseman has jumped the shark. That's my theory. That we've reached the point where there is nothing. That we've reached a point where it's absolutely gone beyond the ability. Free agency has lost a lot of its to people, and the people aren't really spending the amount of research to do on these players, to sign players. They're just looking at basic numbers. This is the best offensive defenseman, so he's going to get $6 million a year. So that's what it's going to play.
It's the biggest potential pitfall for organizations out there to waste their money on long-term big money deals on defensemen And Niskanen, I mean, I know he played in Dallas. He played well for he had one great offensive year in Pittsburgh, and he gets a 7-year deal making almost $6 million. I mean, it's baffling. I mean, it's the market, and that's the way it is, but it's baffling, and I just don't, there are other ways to go for NHL GMs.
This is my next turkey, which is NHL GMs. Which is I want to separate McTavish from them, but I want to throw NHL GMs as my next turkey, and that I think NHL GMs are wimps. I really feel like this year it's been the most, with the exception of Jim Nill and Bergevin in Montreal, the rest of the league are sitting back and waiting for what? Like there's a lot of teams that need help. There's a lot of teams that are close enough. There's no one really way better than everybody else. I mean, you can sit there and you can argue Chicago and LA, but in the East especially, there's really no one who's that much better than anybody else. And there's plenty of space out there, and there seems to be players available, but because what's happening is there's almost no players available because no one's gutsy enough to make a move. So you're sitting back, and there should be players available. There are extra players. When I look at the lineup, I look at certain lineups in the teams. You say this guy, he'd be valuable someplace else. He's playing 4 minutes a game there, and you need a defenseman. You should surely be able to make that work somehow.
I don't know if it's guts or it's economics. And Kevin, you can talk about this because you wrote about it yesterday. There was a list of 5 players that you mentioned as possible trade guys in the next, say, month or so, and all those guys. I mean, a guy like Chris Stewart or a guy like Drew Stafford, their salaries are significant, and teams who want to add those players, they have to wait until the deadline till that amount of the amount of their salary is be able to be fit in a prorated sense into their cap. Otherwise, they can't make the deal. So I think it's the reality of the salary cap and not a lack of guts on the GM's part.
But Mike, well, the GMs dig their own grave a little bit, because if you're a general manager, regardless of how much money your owner gave you to spend, wouldn't you impose your own internal salary cap and give yourself some wiggle room under the cap, maybe $4 or $5 million to work with? Second of all, these GMs have given out so many no-trade clauses, no-movement clauses. Oh, okay, we'll sign you to this deal, but you're able to give us a list of 8 teams that we can trade you to. All that stuff is BS, and it really hamstrings these teams from moving players that they want to move, from getting things done that they want to get done. And what difference does it make? They give these guys a no-trade clause, and at the end of it, what compensation does the team get in return? They save $500,000 a year on a $6 million contract, for instance, just so that this guy has a little security that he won't be moved anywhere. I mean, it's ridiculous. If perfect NHL, we would ban the no-trade clause.
I think that's a valid point. I hate the no-trade clause as well, but playing devil's advocate, because I talk to GMs all the time, what they say is, if I don't give out a no-trade clause, I can't sign any free agents, because when you get in that position, somebody will give them one.
Everyone's demanding a no-trade clause.
Right, and so you got to do it now. And the other point about signing free agents, and I think this is a valid point, and I've said this in defense of Dale Talon on the signings he made this summer, and that is in order to get players to come to Florida, because they've been such a poor team, and I think the same would be true in Edmonton, you have to overpay. I mean, it's just a reality. It's not fair, but you have to overpay. So you overpay, okay, and then you're criticized, ridiculed for getting the amount of contracts. Now, the alternative is you don't overpay and you get no one, and then you're criticized and you're ridiculed because you didn't get anything done. Right. So they're in a tough spot, and Mike just brought it up. The economic realities of a salary cap, although it has helped make more teams competitive, there are parts of it that make it stressful for GMs to try to get deals done. To me, that if you're going to criticize GMs, what I would criticize them for is the marketplace isn't anything like all of them predicted it would be, and it would be to their advantage if it would have been when the salary cap was introduced. If everyone recalls, what GM said is we're going to have to make hard decisions. We're going to have to not fall in love with our players, and we're going to have to let them walk away. There'll be a big pool every summer, and we're going to have to change our players from time to time. You can't fall in love with these guys. But guess what? They're in love with all of their players. They sign everybody long term. There's nobody in the marketplace, or very few players. Those players are worth a lot more money because there's very few of them, and it just dries everything up. So if they had stuck to their guns, this system would work better.
Yeah, and unrestricted free agency is practically dead or mostly dead. Offer sheets are an anathema. I mean,
now I'm going to stop there for not just because it would destroy our business, Mike, but I'm going to say unrestricted free agency is not dead.
I understand.
What's dead in unrestricted free agency is superstar unrestricted free agency.
Right. So what
unrestricted free agency that is, in my opinion, superstar unrestricted free agency has always been a game, a fool's game. The real free agency that matters in the NHL has always been the second, third, and fourth line free agents. They're the ones who have made the bigger difference. They're the ones that made the bigger impact on teams. You know, and that to me is actually thriving. And this, when you look at this coming up, free agents, you don't see the top guys for sure, but you see a lot of players that can make differences on your team in there.
Sure, but the problem is that you're in this competitive market. You're going to be paying second and third tier players first tier money. I mean, when you're paying David $0.25 million, when you're paying Niskanen almost $6 million, Brooks Orpik almost $6 million.
He's not a second tier player I'm talking about real second, third, and fourth liners. You know, like actual even third and fourth liners, like guys who are making $2 million a year. They're the ones who make the difference.
Yeah, Brian Boyle.
Also,
Brian Boyle. Like those are the kind of players that do actually matter.
And where free agency suffers, the trade deadline benefits, because guys don't want to go to free agency, so the trade deadline, we keep seeing the number of trades go up and up and up every year, and people say, well, why is this? It's because no one wants to be caught holding the chair once the dance ends and having a guy on a contract that's expiring and he has no desire to play there next season.
I think the draft trade deadline has benefited. I don't think the trade deadline's benefited as much, but the draft has become another trade deadline.
That's true.
That's what happened as a result of free agency.
I'll give you another turkey. Defenseman Josh Georges blocks the trade to the Toronto Maple Leafs because he doesn't want to play for a division rival, but then accepts the trade to the Buffalo Sabres, who just happen to be in the same division. In 17 games, he has one assist.
They're not a rival, Mike. Hey, you got to think of
that's
rival.
Yeah,
Montreal, Toronto. That's a rival.
In 17 games, Mr. Georges has one assist and is a -6, and has been superseded by rookies Ristolainen and Zadorov. Depth chart. I hope he's enjoying his stay in Buffalo.
He's also leading the NHL in block shots.
Well, they have a lot of shots to block.
I just got a text from a player who wanted me to say this. It's really hilarious. And he says, not only are the Oilers terrible at watching the show, which we have more and more players watching the show every day, not only are the Oilers bad, they haven't led at any point in their 7-game losing streak. They've played 422 minutes and 39 seconds of consecutive ice time, either tied or behind.
Very true. Last night was the first game in 7 that they didn't fall behind 2-0. It was just 1-0, and then they tied the score at 1.
I mean, really, there's really nothing left to say about the Oilers.
No, there isn't. We keep bringing them up. That's the problem.
No,
this team.
Relegate. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't, with that much talent, it doesn't make sense. That's why we keep bringing them up. I mean, they've got too much talent to be this terrible.
Well,
and
that point is so valid, Eklund, and we haven't brought it up enough. They have picked, had high draft picks, lots of talent, lots of skill there. You just expect them to get better on their own by accident, by accident, and it just doesn't happen.
I mean, look at the Islanders. The Islanders are better in the same sort of way. They had a lot of talent, and they are better. And they made the great trades for the defensemen, but a lot of that has been just these guys getting better.
Well, this shows you better than anything the temperature in Edmonton, because I remember when people were talking about going to war in Iraq, and there were some politicians that were saying, I'm not getting political here, but there were some politicians
Can't wait to see where this goes. Go ahead.
We should institute the draft. We are opposed to the war, so we should institute the draft, because that would make people care enough to oppose this war that we feel is unjust, right?
Right.
There are many people now in Edmonton who feel the NHL should institute relegation, which would force owners to care enough about their team to make them competitive. I kid you not.
Man, this just made the best of.
If they have the threat of relegation, they have to do something.
What is this? The Premiership? We're going to send them to the second tier. We're going to send them to the American Hockey League if they have a.
Not the American. The CHL. They got to go. Or the
That would be
UHL.
awesome, by the way.
The United Hockey League. That's where they should go.
Yeah, relegation.
Relegation.
The Oilers are so bad they should be relegated. I like.
Yeah, the Oilers have just reached the official bottom of all talk shows talk. And they're being talked about being relegated, which is basically like one step above just being disbanded.
And here's the sad part for an old codger like me, who, when I started covering the league, the Oilers were the class.
Yeah.
Like in the '80s, you'd go there, and I love the Edmonton fans. How they got into the game. They were so knowledgeable. They still have great ice, but they had the best ice in the league in the 1980s. And you go to an Oilers practice, and the way they would practice, it was just remarkable. They could Curry and Gretzky could just work magic with the puck, and they would throw it around the cross style, and I mean it was just a magical place to watch hockey in the 1980s, and they did it so much better than everybody else, and it was just so much fun. And now for me to watch that franchise now, to see where it is, it's just it's just so disappointing.
It is disappointing. Let's do one more turkey, Cap. You got one more turkey for you?
Yeah, I do it, and this is one I think he's fallen off the radar, and it's almost like he's gotten a free pass because there's been so many easy targets. It's almost been forgotten. But Alexander Semin, needs to be whipped, taken to the woodshed a little bit.
Oh my gosh, yes, you're so right.
This guy is so skillful, and he's a potential 40-goal scorer. And he just has not performed. And this franchise needs him to perform. He's a highly paid player, and he looked like he'd found his home there in Carolina. He didn't feel as much pressure as he felt in Washington. Everybody on the team liked him. He had that nice, got the nice contract, and now boom.
Right there, though, the beginning of that sentence just tells you all you need to know. He didn't feel as much pressure as he felt in Washington. All right, so.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, it's not like he's coming from Montreal. I mean, this is nothing against the Capitals, but
yeah, I think it was the Ovechkin situation. I should have been more clear in Washington.
Okay, all right, yeah.
The Ovechkin situation where you're on the team with the Russian legend, it's just disappointing because there's no one to blame except Semin himself. I think I gotta say he's one of the turkeys, one of my three turkeys.
Have you watched him play in a game? Like I watched him the other night. Sorry, Mike, you go after this. I watched him actually play because I was just curious. Why has this guy been scratched so much? What's the deal? And he literally is not trying. And it's hard to. Hockey players are usually good enough to fake trying. Like you can see even players that aren't giving 100% or they're not giving that extra little bit, and they're usually good enough to fake that. And I talked to a friend of mine who's a fan in Carolina, and bless his heart, as all Carolina fans are incredibly kind people because they just live in a kindness area of the country, are just like, he's a talented guy with a lot on his head. I'm like, that was the response I got from him, and I just said, no, I mean, he is literally making a gazillion dollars to play a sport that we all would kill to be making a gazillion dollars to play, and he is not trying. I mean, he's out there and he's not pushing, a puck goes behind him, he doesn't reach around for it, he just lets it go behind him. There's things that you just see this happen all the time. Mike, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I got a couple more. I'll give you my first one. Who's along the lines of Alex Semin, and honestly, I thought this signing was great for Minnesota, and I thought that they, in spite of the fact that it was high on the salary scale, it was low on the term. Thomas Vanek, $6.5 million for the next 2 years and this year. Has 1 goal in 20 games.
How friggin' predictable was this? I want to just throw this out there.
I thought he was going to start scoring again, but he's just.
We debated this last summer. I should have made a bet with him too. This guy Vanek is literally again another player that, and now he's in Minnesota. I mean, he's in where he wants to be, and he's got talent and skill. My theory, I asked the player who played with Vanek a lot. And I said, what is the deal with Vanek? And they said, well, he's only good if he's playing with other skilled players. He's got to play with really highly skilled players. And some players are like that. And some players are better when they're playing with skilled players. And Minnesota has a lot of great players, a lot of great grinders, but not really necessarily skilled guys. So to me, maybe I'm throwing that out there as just what are your thoughts on Vanek, Kev?
Well, I agreed with Mike. I thought that was a pretty good signing. Like, he has scored a lot of goals. When you start looking at the guys who have produced goals over the last 5 years, Vanek's right in that mix. He's certainly among the leaders. I don't know exactly where he fits, but he scored a lot of goals, and I thought this was a good signing. He was going to a place he wanted to go to. He had a summer home there, and this, he was going to get a lot of opportunity because they wanted the offense to be better. I'm really actually stunned that he hasn't stepped up and played better. To be
But
told.
how he played on the island and how he played in Montreal were just so.
Yeah.
He went south so fast. He's one of those players who just lost it so quickly, apparently.
Yeah, I guess.
He get hurt for 5-6 seasons. Well, this guy's going to end up in Minnesota. That's where he wants to be. That's where he'll produce. What's next? Do we spend the next 5-6 seasons saying, well, he'll go back to Austria because that's where he's most comfortable? That's where he'll produce.
Can we just throw a turkey out there to all hockey players who say they aren't comfortable where they're playing? I mean, I just want. I mean, what world do we live in?
Right?
What world do we live in where you're not comfortable playing ice hockey and making a living doing it? I just don't. I don't get that. To me, it's insane. That just boggles the mind.
Some place where it's -20 in December and January, that makes you not comfortable, right, Ryan?
Still, if you pay Ryan a couple $1 million to go play there, he'll play there and be happy about it.
Well, I noticed that Ryan is always comfortable in Jamaica. So
that's true. That's a good point.
And my other turkey, sticking close to home, defenseman Jake Gardiner of the Toronto Maple Leafs signs a 5-year contract for a little over $4 million a year. In 19 games, he has 1 goal and 3 assists for being an offensive defenseman and leads the club with a brilliant -10. Nice work, Jake.
There you go. Jake Gardiner is somebody that the Oilers should be picking up. This is the issue. This is the issue. This is Craig McTavish. This is why I have a problem. He has not made a trade. How can you not make a trade when this is going on? Do something. I mean, I remember one time we watched a game in Philly where Mike Rathje just was horrible. This was at the end. It was a shame. Mike Rathje was a good player. He was at the end of his career, and he just made 3 mistakes. And I'm walking out of the building, and a scout's next to me, and he says to me, "That's the kind of game that ends a man's career." Just like that. And I'm like, I'm cracking up, and literally that was the last game he played as a Flyer.
Wow.
He was done. And it occurred to me, we've seen situations like when your team. In Philadelphia, if things were as bad as they are in Edmonton, there would have been, even though Hextall's being patient, there would have been 4 trades by now. It's just there's no way that you can continue on like this. The fan base just won't accept it. And I know there's an irrational, like I've said for a long time, love. Canadian fans have an irrational love for their players, and sometimes they rate them too high, and they're afraid of making trades. And I think that plays into the whole thing with the Oilers, but. There's no reason not to. I mean, it sounds like David Perrin, like you said, is going to be traded soon, and it could be any number of places. But I don't know. Do you have any turkeys, Ryan? Before we move on to something.
The Oilers, yes, I have a couple turkeys. Moving far away from the Oilers, and I'm surprised this name hasn't come up because I'm convinced he's the worst player in the National Hockey League this season.
Okay.
Cody Hodgson of the Buffalo Sabres. What happened to this guy? I mean, coming off a 44-point season last year, he was a point-per-game player at the World Championships for Canada. He looked like he was a guy on the upswing. He's signed to a long-term deal, making some decent money. 2 points in 21 games this season, -10, among the worst plus-minus in the league. And I just don't know what's going on with him. I mean, you watch him play, and the puck dies with Hodgson all the time. And I just did not expect this at all. I thought this was a guy we would see him on the track, progressing up to a 50, maybe 60-point player this season, and the exact opposite is true.
And Ryan, he's been moved on to the 4th line, and he's been sat a couple games. He's playing with Patrick Coletta and guys like that when he's not stuck in a snowstorm.
You got to throw this back to the Canucks when they traded. That was such a surprising trade when it happened. And it was really kind of it looked like a real coup by the Buffalo Sabres because this guy has so much, but at the same time, whenever that happens, you have to look at Vancouver. They knew something out there. And that's what I keep saying to myself. They knew something about this guy, about his character. Either that, or they're just telling him they don't want him to play well because they're afraid. I mean, there's no other explanation. You're completely right. Either he has, or they're just.
Zach Kassian isn't exactly a model consistency act.
Well, no, I know that, but that was the whole point, right? I mean, that they could get a guy like Cody Hodgson, who was really very, highly talented at one point, and a lot of people in Vancouver were dying for this guy to be brought up, and I would hear people always saying, "Oh, we can't wait till he gets in the lineup and all this," and then, he shipped off like he was. That's what else you have, Ryan?
The other guy I have, because we have to pick on the Flames a little bit, right? But Devin Setaguchi, who was placed on waivers today, placed on waivers just in time for the Flames to play the San Jose Sharks in San Jose, which I know ticks off the San Jose beat writers to no end, who all have had their stories written for the last week. But
all about us, the writers. Yeah, for sure.
It is.
That's funny. But
And all three of them are. I mean, it is a strange one. I mean, Setaguchi, this was like his last chance, and you get cut from a team that needs offense, like the guy.
And you get cut from a team with the Flames. No offense to the Flames, but it's kind of a Lord of the Flies situation, kind of Island of Misfit Toys out there, where like if players don't met with other teams.
Two metaphors. Lord of the Flies is like head on a stake. Yeah, Island of Misfit Toys is like choo-choo train with square wheels. So where are we going here?
Well, have you seen Yuri Hoodler play? I mean, come on, he's kind of a.
Yeah, that's the answer to every question. Have you seen Yuri Hoodler play?
But you're thinking, okay, he will fit here, right? Close to his hometown, in an organization where they get the best out of players like this. They're able to take those guys and put them into a system where they're able to produce, and their effort is rewarded. And I'm very surprised to see him flame out the way that he has. No pun intended.
Well, I honestly feel, because I looked at Setaguchi, I think he's played like 12 games and has no points, is -7, so he just didn't do anything with the Flames. But with a number of teams out there looking for forwards, and his contract was a 1-year deal, I believe, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets claimed. Somebody give him a second chance or another chance.
This would be another chance, yeah. It wouldn't be a second chance. This would be a fourth or fifth chance, depending on how much you count Minnesota. But yeah, this is definitely another chance. What else you got? Anything else, Ryan?
The only other guy I had who, I don't know, he's the biggest turkey in the league, but it would be Dustin Byfuglien up in Winnipeg, who has spent some time at right wing this season and is not producing at all. And it's interesting to see the Winnipeg Jets have turned it around after their early season woes. And really, Byfuglien just not really part of the solution there. I'm interested to see if he ends up going anywhere. I'm interested to see if the Winnipeg Jets will ever make a player-for-player trade. But really,
yeah, that's a big one, right? I mean, and this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about with GMs. This is like there is no reason Dustin Byfuglien hasn't been traded, and he obviously doesn't want to play wing. It is pretty obvious he's a defender. He sees the game better from the defensive side of things. That's just the way he plays. He's better that way. He's going to give you problems, but he's also potentially, when he plays defense on a consistent basis, one of the top 5 defensive scorers in the league. So what are you doing? I mean, this is crazy. So we spent the first 46 minutes of the show with Turkey. So let's spend the last 3.5 talking about good things. So Kevin, give us something. Give us a blessing.
I'll give you 3 guys that I think that their teams are very thankful to have them, and they really made an impact. And I'm going to go Johnny Boychuk with the Islanders. I think he's really changed the culture of that team, the defense. He's added a layer of competitiveness to it. He stabilized the defense. They've got to get him signed long term. I think that's priority 1. It should be for the New York Islanders. I think they know that. I think that was one of the best trades that anybody's made in a while in terms of having an impact on the team. Number 2, I'm going with Benning as the GM in Vancouver. He's had a tremendous impact. You look back at the 4 moves he's made since he took over. He brought in Ryan Miller and Verbata as free agents. He did a pretty good job getting a good value out of the Ryan Kessler trade, and he hired Willie Desjardins, who's sort of, I mean, anybody who followed Tortorella was going to be in pretty good shape if he was just treated the players better than Torts did. But Desjardins is a good coach, and he's a very positive guy, and I think he's gotten the most out of that ability. So I would say that organization should be thankful for both of them. And then I think Jonas Hiller in Calgary. And again, I don't think they had targeted goaltending, but he was available. They saw an opportunity, and they took advantage of it. It wasn't teams that weren't looking for goaltending, and I think those are 3 guys that kind of symbols of players you should be thankful for that they made a difference on their team.
Really.
Well,
Go ahead, Mike.
my blessings, I'll call it blessings, the Helsinki edition, because both of them are Finns. Jori Lehtera from the St. Louis Blues, who they bring over on a 2-year contract, who played with Tarasenko in the KHL, is a point-per-game center and has actually filled the gap when Paul Stastny got injured and has really provided Ken Hitchcock ability and is really working well with Tarasenko and Jaden Schwartz on the Blues. Well, I would consider them their number one, but probably their number 2 line. The other is Leo Komarov from the Maple Leafs. Never, in his 1 year in the NHL, had never scored. He scored 9 points, I believe, in 42 games. Comes back over this year, is leading the team, tied with Phil Kessel with 12 assists. And his energy has been able to help other players like Clarkson and Santorelli and Holland play a lot better. So a couple Finns have really contributed well in the NHL this year.
Oh, I like those. Those are good. What do you got, Ryan?
My 2 blessings. The first one is Ryan Miller, goaltender for the Vancouver Canucks, who it was interesting to see a lot of people slagging him. A lot of people, including Mike Agello, slagging him after his playoff performance for the St. Louis Blues last year. He was a guy you knew he was going to turn it around, but I didn't think he would turn it around to this extent. Coming off the shutout a couple nights ago for Vancouver, he is a huge difference maker for that team. And his competitiveness, we've talked about it before, but I'm very impressed, very surprised that the Vancouver Canucks have fed off his energy so effectively to this point. And the second guy that I have, not a new addition, but it kind of feels that way based on all the controversy we had in the preseason, Ryan Johansson for the Columbus Blue Jackets, who now, does that guy look like a steal or what? I mean, he is among the league leaders in scoring. He has picked up a lot of the slack there, given how many injuries that the Blue Jackets have had. And really, you look at it, and it makes John Davidson and the Blue Jackets management look bad for not just paying this guy what he was worth, when clearly he has already justified the contract and then some 20 games into the season.
Yeah, I mean, or look good for getting him for that price.
Either way, I mean, I don't like the tactics they use going public and stuff like that, but hey, I guess they did it, so kudos to them.
And I give honorable mention to Brad Richards back.
Yeah, I'll give honorable mention to Brad Richards. Absolutely. Let's talk for a second, because this is Thanksgiving, about the teams that we think that aren't in the playoffs right now that could perhaps make the playoffs, because this is always, like we've talked about many years, this has always been the big thing, and since we don't have another show this week, I wanted to kind of get into it now. Right now, the wild card race is fascinating. When you look at it, like, the Bruins are in the wild card race right now, which is, I mean, there's a lot of strange things. This is a very different year, So currently, let's see who's not in the playoffs right now. So right now we have in the playoffs, you have the
right now, okay, I'll do the East. Montreal and Pittsburgh are the division leaders.
Correct.
Tampa and Detroit are the 2 additional in the Atlantic. The Islanders and the Rangers are the 2 additional in the Metropolitan. The 2 wild cards would be Boston and Toronto with 27 and 24 points. Outside is Ottawa, Washington, New Jersey, Philadelphia, and then Carolina, Columbus.
And Florida's in there too, right? So Florida's in that boat as well.
Yeah.
So right now you've got the playoffs are got some interesting teams in here. I mean, you've got some teams that made it from last year, but you've got some teams that didn't. And in my mind, so who do we think, Kevin? Who in the East can still make it?
Boy, I kind of think that what you see is what you get there. But if I had to pick a team, I still think, I have a lot of faith in Barry Trotz that he'll get that team squared away.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta believe that he's eventually going to have an impact on their ability to keep the puck out of the net. So I guess they'd be a team that I would watch out for. But I kind of think the East is sort of unfolding not much differently than I thought it would.
All right, what do you think, Ryan?
Well, one noticeable team that is not in the playoffs if they started today is the. Are we staying out west or are we going East?
Staying in East.
The one team that I really expect to make the playoffs still is the Philadelphia Flyers. I think once they get their goaltending figured out, who they're going with, Emery or Mason, and that guy's able to run with it and able to gain some momentum. I mean, look at what Jakub Voracek has done for that team this season. Just unbelievable. I think they're better than what they've shown. I think once they get a few guys back healthy on defense, they'll be just fine. They'll straighten out. And I think they're better than teams like the Capitals and Devils, who are above them in the standings currently.
Flyers have played only 20 games, so they do have some games in hand on teams, even though they're behind. But I don't know. I mean, I don't see them as a playoff team right now. The way they're playing, you know, they should be. They have the talent, but they don't have the defense at all. Their defense is really, really bad. You know, the fact that Del Zotto, who's actually been better than they expected, you know, way better than they expected, is still playing as many minutes as he is an issue. You know, McDonald coming back from healthy. Luke Shen has been horrific. Luke Shen has really taken a step backwards this year in many ways. So that's a tough team for me. Mike, who do you think? I kind of agree with you. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I kind of agree with Kevin that Washington's the team to watch here, because they've not played well, and yet they're really not that far out of it. And no one looks at the Caps like they've had a great start to the season, but here they sit, you know, only a few points out.
Ryan stole my thunder. I was going to say Philadelphia. I think there's too much talent there. I know there's a lot of, you know, a lot of panic with their defensive situation, but I just think there's enough talent there, and I think Mason is the guy. I think they should go with Mason like they did last year, and if they do, I think they'll make a run at one of the wild card spots. Washington, I think they are what they are. I think they're going to get as far as they are going to get with Barry Trotz with this roster, but I don't know if it's going to be good enough to make the playoffs. But I'd say Philadelphia.
All right, so let's go to the West, where it really gets fun. this Western at this point. I have it right now. I have it. So right now, Nashville and Anaheim. Although the Blues are tied with Nashville, but have played one more game. So right now, Nashville and Anaheim are leading their division. Nashville, man, I guess they're, you know, no one. I mean, I picked them to make the playoffs, but never would have thought in a million years they were going to win their division. St. Louis, Chicago, Vancouver, Calgary. Those are your 6 teams that are in it right now. L.A. and Winnipeg are holding on to the wild cards. So on the outside looking in right now, Minnesota, who has played 3 less games and is only 1 point behind Winnipeg. So that's a tough spot to say right there. I think though, you know, put the Wild a bit ahead of them a little bit. Perhaps San Jose has played the same amount of games as Winnipeg and is 1 point behind. And Dallas, Colorado, who's coming on, but still is, you know, these are all, and Arizona, all those teams are only 4 points out of a playoff spot. So everybody but Edmonton is only 4 points from a playoff spot in the West, which is fascinating, you know. So every team right there. So it's kind of, this is the situation where surely over the rest of the season teams can make up 4 points. You know, although you have to, you know, I know you have to jump a lot of teams and stuff like that. But Kevin, who's making it out west?
Well, I still think Minnesota is in. You know, it's a pretty sound team. You know, they're not spectacular, but you know, they're a playoff team. I don't think there's any question about that, and I think they'll leapfrog past Winnipeg. You know, I want to say Dallas, but because I like that team a lot, but I think the Nichushkin injury, they were counting on him being a major factor. And you know, they don't have enough with Hemsky not performing as well. So I think they're going to probably struggle. But the team that I do think will make it, and everyone seems to be down on them, but the Sharks have a lot of talent. You know, a lot of ability on that team. And you know, if their goaltending is good at all down the stretch, I just can't see them not making it. I mean, you know, you look at their forwards; they have 5 or 6 forwards that are pretty impressive. So I got to believe they're going to get in.
Yeah, I mean, Minnesota's scored 14 more goals than they've allowed.
Yeah.
Which is crazy that they're not in the playoffs right now. I mean, that's among the highest in goal differential in the league, isn't it? If not the highest?
Yeah.
It's like the 3rd highest in the league. Who you got, Ryan?
I have the Sharks. I think they're too good up front. They score too many goals. Their special teams is solid. I really think that they need to get that goaltending figured out. I know Alex Stalock's injured, and they're relying on Niemi to kind of carry the mail there, but we know Doug Wilson. We know he likes not necessarily reclamation projects, but he likes rescuing guys from retirement. So wouldn't it just make too much sense for Marty Brodeur to land in San Jose? I mean, it's a match made in heaven. He wants to go to a contender. He wants to play in the playoffs. He wants to run at a cup. What better situation for him than San Jose? I would love to see it. I can't wait.
I do agree that it's a good fit. It is a good fit. It would make sense. This team, I'm still I'm still saying to this day, if they had signed Ryan Miller away from Vancouver, they would be in a much better spot. That's what they should have done. Mike?
Well, it's funny that the two teams that have the least amount of home games played in the West are Minnesota and San Jose. I mean, San Jose has only played 7 home games, and they don't even have a 500 record, which is bizarre because they usually play very well in San Jose. I think Minnesota. I think that a guy like Vanek should hopefully kick it into gear. They've gotten past the injury to Parise. Their goaltending seems to be a little more stable now with Kemper and Backstrom staying relatively healthy, and Suter is having a great year. I think San Jose needs to make a trade, and there are a lot of rumors out there that they keep slumping right now that Todd McClellan's job is in danger. If that happens, then all bets are off, but I think Minnesota is going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, it's hard now. I mean, is LA in danger at all here, guys? I mean, think about the Kings. I mean, are they? Is this trouble, Kevin? We joked about.
I can't see it. I mean, that team is still built for the playoffs and so strong. I just feel when it comes down to it, they're just going to step up and play. I will say that the Voynov status has really caused them some issues, particularly with Martinez injured as well. Like he's an important part of their team, and he's their number 2 behind Doughty, and they need him. He's an exceptional transition defenseman, and that's caused issues for him.
And the Stanley Cup champion LA Kings have less wins on the road than Edmonton. They've only won 1 game in 9, and Edmonton is 2-6-1. So that's the genesis of their problems right now. They've won.
That's a good road team historically. That's the strange thing about it.
Yeah, strange.
Yeah. They're for some reason they're challenged in the regular season. They can't seem to get up for the regular season. But man, there is certainly a different team in the postseason. So.
Yeah.
Before we check out, I wanted to bring up one point just for the panel to think about for a minute. I found it very interesting that Brian Elliott, a goalie that I like a lot, I think he's underrated, but I like Jake Allen a lot. And Brian Elliott is now injured. Now, I don't know to what extent his injury is. I don't know if he's going to be out for a while or not. But I said before the season that I felt there was a chance that even with Brian Elliott there, who has really done nothing to make us think that he's not going to be able to hold the net. But Jake Allen, I think, has potential to steal the net. Like I could see this as being a Lou Gehrig, Wally Pipp situation where Elliott goes down and Jake Allen just gets in and just takes the net on forward. I think this kid can be a really excellent goaltender in the NHL.
I'm with you. This all signs would point to that too. It's the kind of goaltender that Hitchcock likes a lot too. Jake Allen is the kind of guy that once he goes with.
Big goalie, AHL goalie of the year.
Yeah.
He's not a young kid. He's 24 years old. I mean, going into the season, it made all the sense in the world. But this, as Kevin said, the injury sort of opens up the way for it. And if it is a long-term injury, then you have to wonder whether St. Louis is looking for a veteran backup, and it wouldn't be satisfied with, I think it's Jordan Binnington as the backup goalie. I mean, this might be a scenario for a Brodeur or Vaucoon or somebody like that.
Mm-hmm. Could be. I mean, I really like Jake Allen a lot. I think that I'm with you on this, Kevin. I would be a buyer on that if we were doing a buyer and seller on this. I'm with you. This seems like the perfect scenario for that. It seems like the time's right for that as well. Well, I want to say one thing that I am thankful for, and I am thankful for all you guys for watching this show as much as you are, and I'm really thankful for my co-hosts on this show, and for putting in all the time that you guys are putting in, and for making this show like the most enjoyable part of my day every day. I really appreciate it. I love doing this. I'm on vacation right now. My family's down by the pool, swimming around, and having some fun, and I'm sitting here doing a podcast on the lanai. So I really appreciate the. I just love doing it. I love the fact that you guys are watching it as much. It's been an honor, and we're looking forward to keep doing it. But I just wanted to say that how thankful I was for that, guys. So we'll definitely talk to you all soon, guys. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. Enjoy your time with your family. My family, for whatever reason, decided to do Thanksgiving yesterday. Peter. We just wanted to be thankful to make everyone else feel bad for a couple more days. But we're thankful now. So anyway, enjoy your Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to bring up something I heard in the Publix. Do you think Marty St. Louis will be booed tonight in Tampa? This is a really interesting topic that we didn't get to. Just real quick, your thoughts. I'm sorry.
No. No way will he be booed.
All right.
No, not enough angst down there in Tampa. The people are living large. They have great weather. No.
Yeah. No, I'm for that too. I don't see the Tampa Bay fans as being a spiteful group. And he did a lot for that franchise. He helped them win a cup.
Yeah.
You can't boo Marty St. Louis. Everybody likes Marty St. Louis.
You shouldn't boo Marty St. Louis, but if he had gone from the Rangers to Tampa, was going back to New York, he'd be booed like crazy tonight because he demanded a trade. Don't forget that he demanded a trade.
True.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
but they got a lot of talent back,
Yeah.
and Ryan Callahan is an integral part of that team right now. So in the end, I think it's benefited the Lightning. So I think he will get the applause of the Tampa following.
Very true. All right, guys. Thanks again. Remember that the buzz is just hockey. Talk to you all soon.